Hey everybody, it's Commander Clyde. Welcome back to another patch notes review video. I'm late on this one. Sorry about that, but we are here with another Nickelodeon collab by SMITE here. We got the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles skins in this update. It's a fun thing. Not a show that I watched when I was younger. It was a weird thing for me. I think I was like older or something when it was popular, so I kind of missed it. And the other thing was I was probably watching a lot more Cartoon Network than Nickelodeon at the time. Anyway, moving on. We got Leonardo Osiris. We got Raphael Loki, Michelangelo Mercury, and then your boy Donatello with the Sun Wukong skin. And then we got these like more stylized animated looking skins here that are basically the same skins as these. You got Splinter, Hachiman, the old master, hanging out over here, and then Shredder Robin, which is probably the best skin out of this, I would say. I think I probably like it the most. And then all these other ones that don't matter. And then Fancy Donkey Boy down here with the Sir Sandington set. That's an interesting one. I wonder how they've executed that. I'm interested to hear the voice pack on that one. And to be honest, this is kind of a crummy Cthulhu skin to get. It's just kind of a recolor. Not really that exciting. Hopefully he'll get a real one soon. Anyway, October 20th, which is tomorrow, it's going to be the 7.10 bonus. Update, whatever. November 3rd will be the Battle Pass, the Radical Chest, and the Odyssey Reckoning content. And then the 17th, more content and Digital Loot Pack. Oh boy. Battle Pass, blah, blah, blah. Adding a bunch of things. I don't care. QOL, returning adventure mode Celestial Domination. Teams with only one capture point will now continue to deduct tickets from an enemy team, although at a lesser rate than owning 2 or more points. Decrease the overall sources of XP on the map as players were far out leveling their item builds. Decrease recharge time after a Jin is killed from 30 to 5 seconds. So recharge time. It's been a while since I've played Domination because it's been out for a while. They've had it off of the adventure mode for a while. I don't remember. Anyway, let's talk about updated early surrender. Early surrender was added to SMITE as a quality of life feature so that in cases whether due to users' Wi-Fi, their ISP, or the SMITE servers, a teammate was gone long enough that it wasn't fair to play it out, all players in the match could get into a healthier game as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, some players have been abusing this to dodge what they perceive to be losing matches based on pre-10-minute gameplay, which is insane to think you've lost a game that fast, honestly. While the regrettable truth is that the harsher we make the DC penalty prevent this abuse, the harsher the effects on those players that were actually disconnected. It's clear that this abuse case has caused too much frustration to leave unchanged. Hopefully this will put a stop to that intentional misuse, but we will continue to keep an eye on it. And in the meantime, if you feel like a player is intentionally abusing the system, please report them and our support team will investigate. In games where early surrender is used, the players who triggered the early surrender by DCing will be given a deserter penalty. Healing percent effects. All abilities and items that apply healing percent changes for increasing or decreasing healing will now affect all forms of healing. Lifesteal, ability healing, item heals, relic heals, potions, HP 5, jungle buffs. Does this not include health returns like Chronos ult? I guess not, because that's not healing. that interaction's always been weird with some stuff. So there's some abilities that feel like they don't get affected by percent decreases or things like that. It's some stuff. There's been weird things over the years with how healing works. Guess that'll be more consistent. Updated mini descriptions for better clarity and consistency. Whatever. You don't have to go over all that. Clarify the type of CC in SMITE vortex, which is when you are pulled inward by a circle, essentially. Defined by a gradual dragging effect on gods of pulls toward a source location. Poseidon Whirlpool, Hades Pillar of Agony, Barren Life of the Party, and Susanoo Typhoon. Bug fixes. Hooray. I don't want to go over all these god bugs. That's a lot. So we're going to ignore the bug section. You guys can read that later. Balance live with the TMNT update on November 3rd. Get magic shell upgrade changes. For many relics, the effect of stacking multiple relics doesn't provide additional benefit, and this is especially true of buffs for teammates. The block stacking, while the shield did not, seems unintuitive and difficult for enemy teams to keep track of. Block stacks from upgraded shell will no longer stack. Smart. Block stacks from this item no longer stack with multiple fires of the relic. It should be noted that the shield from this relic never has stacked and will continue to not. So, no more quad stacking if you've got quad blocks, if you've got 2 shells on your team, which is a fairly typical thing right now. So that's good. Means you actually have to pay attention and coordinate your shell usage. Guardian's Blessing. With a new season on the horizon and many items being adjusted, we are looking to round out a few smaller issues before the World Championships. The first step we are taking is a small protections buff to the early game for supports. Dueling can be punishing, and we want supports to feel sufficiently tanky, but I mean Thebes. So obviously it doesn't help them from being shredded by high pin builds in the late game, but it does help supports progress through a match more safely, which should give them an edge as the game goes on. Increase magical and physical protections from 5 to 10. I don't know why, because Thebes exists, and you're going to have that done. I mean, it doesn't take that long to stack Thebes if you share waves like you're supposed to. I feel like this is a pretty strong buff to aggressive supports, because that gives them more protections early, and they can be more aggressive early because of that. I don't know if that's honestly the best thing to do. I mean, it is only 5 prots. So, we'll see. Staff of Ridden. The legendary Arthurian item for mages received a lot of hype on release, but has since fallen off. Its special effect can be difficult to use optimally, and its stats just don't feel like they fit the cost. We are making this item slightly more affordable to make it a more viable mage build. Pickup, decreased cost from 3,000 to 2,800. I think the main issue with it being optimal is the god that you're building it on. I don't think this special effect is hard to use optimally. It all depends on what god you're picking. Some gods use it better than others. For Poseidon doesn't really use this item that well because 2 whirlpools is not that big of a thing. Having 2 tidal surges is not really great because that's a slow moving line target ability. And double trident does nothing because the effect doesn't stack on itself. So it's situations like that where the god you picked may not be optimal because his other abilities don't function well with it. That'd be the only thing I think. So I don't know that you need to do the cost decrease. Anyway, God balance. Knox, the goddess of night, is a popular topic for balanced discussion. Nox's kit focuses on making your life miserable, all in, all in gameplay and heavy lockdown, making her a rather unique mage. Her high amount of CC has often been a limiting factor for her, as buffing overall damage or ease of use of the kit would likely cause frustrations. It's already frustrating. After much deliberation and statistical review, we are looking to bolster Nox's laning potential as a way of bringing the goddess into a more competitive spot. Her Shadow Lock ability will now be able to deal a small amount of damage to minions as it passes through them. Oh boy. This gives Knox more efficient lane clear, but more importantly gives her more decisions to make in the laning phase on how to pressure her opponents. Doesn't that imply, though, that you have to get a successful lock across the minion wave on your opponent to channel it, to be able to use that effectively on minion waves? That's still kind of a little awkward. AO1 also, is it only the first hit? Now deals pass-through damage on minions 50 to 190 plus 40%. This ability is now able to hit multiple targets. Its lifesteal multiplier is being decreased from 100 to 33%. Okay. Well, that doesn't make her more frustrating to play against, so that's fine. Anyway, Athena, by popular demand, the goddess of wisdom will have a cleaving basic attack in her hit chain. Athena's balance has been in a great spot over the years, where she never felt oppressive but always felt relevant. However, she has slowly dropped off over time, and now we can feel comfortable applying some buffs. This change should keep her early lane clear or her jungle flex potential, and will feel more fitting to the animation of the attack. And I think that's kind of the big part of that. Why do you have this big circular hit that only hits one target? That's kind of weird. Final basic attack, the hit chain necklace. Bacchus. How many god balance changes are we looking at here? When you play Bacchus, you're here to party. Unfortunately, Chug doesn't feel great to rank up, and the buff from it feels lackluster. We want Bacchus players to chug right before they engage in combat, so we are adding an extra magical power buff to the effect. Why? This should have our big boy swinging hard on his enemies like the good old days. I mean, that's all Bacchus has ever done. You pick him for damage. You don't pick him for supporting. Now provides Bacchus with the buff 0 to 35 magical power per rank, because there is a 0 rank to this that does nothing but stack the passive meter. So yeah. So think of it more like 7 to 35. And decrease mana cost from 40 to 60 mana to 40 at all ranks. See, now the clever things you can do here is trade a power item for a tanky item, and then he's just harder to kill and does the same amount of damage. And now you're having a party, man, with a god that is unkillable, that could kill you. Bologna, the goddess of war, is notoriously tricky to buff, being able to quickly overtake a meta when even slightly too strong. With this in mind, we looked to make changes to Bologna to improve her flexibility. Her mana costs often interfere with her ability to swap to the right weapon for the correct situation. This change will help her box without pushing her to be intense. Shield Bash decreased mana cost from 75 to 60. Scourge decreased mana cost from 70 to 90 to 60 to 80. And we're talking about this because she hasn't been great in the solo lane these days. There's a lot of other gods that are just better than her right now. She needs a little help to stay relevant, because as it stands right now, she's kind of a weak pick in solo, and it's really weird. But yeah, there you go. God, why? Why? He doesn't need it. Stop, people. Please. It might be hard for people to understand why I don't want my favorite god to get buffs. I mean, it's because, well, he doesn't need it. I'm objective about this. He doesn't need more buffs. He's got enough. You guys need to stop. Any weakness people are experiencing with this god is because they don't know how to play him properly. It's not because he's weird in the meta or he just isn't good. It's just people aren't really great at playing him most of the time. Anyway, Chuck, what do you give a god who seemingly has it all but can't quite break into the meta? That's bullshit. He's in the meta. People just need to figure it out. Looking at Chuck's kit, this god support. Just there you go. That's all you need to know. It's pretty funny. His 3 if you're playing him in support. Looking at Chalk's kit on paper, we see strong damage output, self-sustain, debuffing, zone control, and impactful CC. Chalk is already putting up some decent casual stats. So we are being measured with our buffs. Yeah, he puts up great stats in casuals because he's bullshit in casuals. In this pass, we are making the self-buff aspect of his torrent much more relevant. Many players overlook this feature of his kit entirely, and this should help him stay alive in extended fights. We will be keeping a close eye on this god, so we see constant community outcry for him to make more competitive appearances. Torrent is an ability that is often not used optimally. People forget how many functions it has. It does damage. It also has a teleport. It also gives you a protection buff based on the number of... No, it just gives you the buff, I think. I don't think it's based on the number of targets you go through when you teleport. And then each target that you pass through when you teleport takes an extra 50% damage. And people forget about that one. That's the fun one. Yeah, buffs to Torrent aren't terrible, but I don't think he needs buffs. Dodgy, this change is a long time coming. It was discussed with Olympians at the Season 6 Summit, but Dodgy's meta position was too high for a change. Currently, this ability has some very interesting per rank scaling that causes it to feel bad in the early game. We're increasing the rank 1 damage considerably while decreasing the per rank increase in the late game base damage. This change is intended to be a buff, so that base damage loss is being compensated with a physical scaling buff. Wow. 1,000 cuts adjusted damage from 115 to 25 to 105 per hit. Interesting. 60 to 460 to 100 to 420 total hits 4 times. So the front end, the early part's getting buffed. Increased physical power scaling from 30 to 35% per hit. 120 to 140% total hits 4 times. Okay. I think that's good because this ability, like, that's a big difference here between the rank 1 and the rank 2. That's, when you look at it like that, that's simply just too low. This is a significantly better progression here, at least in my opinion. Like that. Dodgy's kind of been out of the meta lately, so I think that's a pretty good one. This god, not saying the name, the goddess of magic was a force to be reckoned with earlier this year, which led to a long series of nerfs. With other meta and item changes, we can now clearly see that those nerfs were too much and we are slowly reverting them. Wind Gust needs to be a high top end damage to be worth the channel time and positional risk, so we are bringing that back in the update. Wind Gust increased magical power scaling from 35 to 40% magical power per hit. I don't have a lot to talk about on that one. Jormungandr, lately the danger, don't say this. Stop saying noodle. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't like it. There it is. Not enough danger. Jormungandr has had a huge arrival on the battleground, causing a lot of disruption to the meta and dominating solo lane for months. Not lately. Considerable nerfs were applied. Oh yeah, that's what they're talking about. Considerable nerfs were applied over time, and now Yorm is clearly looking underpowered. I don't agree. His damage potential tends to be a frustration point, so we are looking to buff his utility instead. Submerge is getting a lower cooldown and stronger CC to make sure Yorm can impact a fight in more ways than just dealing damage. Well, that's fine, I guess. Increase knock-up height from 300 to 375. Decrease cooldown from 18 to 16. Yeah, that's fine. As long as it's not a damage buff, I think you're fine. Honestly, I don't see him as being underpowered. I see him as being even. Now, because before he was just better than everything. And they nerfed him, and now that's not true anymore. But if you play him properly, he's still pretty strong. Anyway, Medusa, our quest continues to bring Medusa up to a point of competitive viability. Acid Spray doesn't rank up in damage very well, but Medusa needs to tank this first anyway. We are increasing the base damage per rank to make sure Medusa can clear waves effectively as she transitions from early game to mid game. Acid Spray increased base damage from 90 to 270 to 90 to 290. Okay. I don't think Medusa is in that bad of a spot. She just doesn't get picked very much. People don't seem to really like to play her for whatever reason. Mulan, after a heroic launch, Mulan is settled in nicely into the ranks of Smite gods. She feels viable without being frustrating and brings fast-paced combat and flexibility to the warrior class. Her ultimate, however, has a strangely long cooldown for the effects and is being toned down slightly to better fit within the scope. Divine Mastery decreased cooldown from 100 to 90 seconds. Okay. Neath, the new backflip timing is feeling great, but we have received feedback that the mana cost is rather archaic and punishing. We are bringing this down to match Neath's more modern gameplay goals. What? To just run away better? That's it? Decrease mana from 70 to 110 to 60 to 80. I mean... so, whatever. I guess that's what it is. People just want hunters that can instantly get away from damage. Now, nobody wants slow, costly abilities, I guess. Don't want to have to think about, if I use this ability, I could die. You know, it's like, that was what you had to work with before. You had to think about, if I use this now, I could be in trouble later. I need to think about this. And now it's just like, I'm in trouble, hit button. And, whoops. Had the middle mouse click down. Anyway, Odin, the Allfather was another strong rework that led to slight over nerfing. We are reverting one of those nerfs to Gungnir's Might's base damage, which should help his early clear and solo lane potential. Bastet, who was reworked at the same time, is also being considered for more significant changes in the future. I don't need him to be viable in solo. That's fine. He can stay away. This god's not fun to play. Well, for me anyway. He's not fun to play in solo. It's not fun. It's terrible. So you use that to clear, but you're still not going to full clear on Gungnir's Might. You'll still get out cleared. You're still going to have to jump on people. And if you can't hit that, he still can't box in solo unless he can hit his bomb, his bird bomb, but you can't do that efficiently. So I still think he's not going to be solo lane viable, really. Hey, Terra, the Earth Mother is continuing her transformation from true support to bruiser. Terra was originally thought of as a more protective guardian, but as her pro gameplay and balance progressed, we started to see her played more aggressively and even in solo lane. We're adding cleave attacks to all of her punches only when her passive is active. This adds a unique management component to her deployables and bolsters her early game, which tends to be awkward until she has all of her abilities ranked for shatter combos. Standing Stones, Terra now gains cleave basic attacks on her entire hit chain while this passive is active. Yep. I like playing Terra. Terra's fun. Solo lane is still... most of the time it's pretty difficult to execute. Some of the pros can do it pretty well, but man, it's pretty tough to pull this off if you're not like really experienced with this character. So I don't typically do that. She's just, for me, a bit too risky to play in solo, but this is fun. And that makes it a little better. You can be a little clever there because you can put your 2 out and then get your cleave autos down to weaken minions or whatever, and then pop the 2 and clear them. So that's, I think, will be an interesting strategy component. A Vulcan, a buff shouldn't cost an arm and a leg. Well, Vulcan is missing those limbs, and there isn't much we can do about that. But we can buff his ultimate. This ability has insane long-range snipe potential, but feels far too weak when used at closer ranges. We are increasing the floor on the damage curve to make this ability more useful. Increase damage at close range from 60 to 75% of max damage. Woo! Makes him a little more threatening when you get in close. So he doesn't feel like, I'm going to pop this because there's nothing I have left to do. And I'll probably still die. That was the usual thing with Vulcan. A little more threatening. I like that. Xbalanque. The Mayan hero twin has had some very interesting balance developments over the past season. After some interesting changes in the past season, Xbalanque settled into the lower end of the Hunter roster. With branching bolos and his ultimate now feeling to be a great spot, so we looked at his movement ability. Rising Jaguar used to be a key source of damage in the old days, but it has crazy low scaling for today's standards. We are increasing this damage scaling a considerable amount to give Xbalanque more options in combat. Fun. Increase physical power scaling from 30 to 50%. I really like Rising Jaguar, and I'm glad they did this because, well, this makes it more fun when you've hit poison darts because you get bonus damage on Rising Jaguar from that. Now it's going to have more scaling too. Maybe you can actually full clear waves with those 2 abilities now. It would be nice. Kind of. Which, I don't know if that would make him too dominant with bolos. Maybe not. Some people, like Zapman, and I also do this too, that will actually level Rising Jaguar because it's actually really good for clear with the bonus damage after poison darts, and this will make that a more viable strat, honestly. Anyway, Jonquilly, again, we're back here again. Okay, he might not be getting another skin yet, but he is getting a buff. Jonquilly is surprisingly underperforming in a meta where solo lane mages have been quite potent. Zhang is intentionally designed with slightly lower damage, traded for tankier stats, but his damage numbers look surprisingly low in a few places. Even for a solo lane mage, we are buffing a base damage and a scaling effect in his kit to bring his damage up across multiple build paths and roles. Book of Demons, increase base damage from 60 to 80 to 80 to 300. Woohoo! And Recall Demons, increase magical power scaling from 20 to 25 per tick. 100 to 125%. Total hits 5 times. And there you go, everybody. That is 7.11 of SMITE, the TMNT update. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. Like and subscribe if you did. Feel free to leave comments down below, and as always, check the helpful links down in the description, and I will see you guys next time for some more SMITE. Have a good one.